Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most controversial subjects in the world, which is money. Now, you may have heard that the controllers are having yet another one of their secret meetings. I think it's in Portugal this time. Well, apparently, the top two things they are going to discuss, the two things at the top of their list, are AI and the banking system. So, you may have also heard that these controllers are working feverishly to create a new way to control us completely using money. Now, I'm not really going to be talking about the money system per se, because what I really want to discuss with you guys is our consciousness around the subject of money. Because these controllers have been using this to enslave us. They've been using their system of how they operate with it and how they manage to control it, literally, I think, for thousands of years. We cannot afford to go into the next phase of whatever's going to happen on this planet. We cannot afford to go into that phase with the same mindset that we've all had for centuries, which is the mindset that they established in our consciousness in order to get things to the point that they are today. So I want to talk to you on the level of our consciousness, basically. Because if you've seen my last couple of videos, certainly the last few, I think, you might remember that I've been suggesting for a very long time that we need to go to a whole new level in our consciousness with how we approach our situation on this planet. I've said for a long time that the controllers enact all of their nefarious stuff from a broad metaphysical perspective, not just physical. We humans on this planet, on the other hand, we tend to approach everything from a place of reactivity and from mostly a physical perspective. So we need to expand our consciousness and at the very least work at a level that is equal in terms of metaphysics or surpasses it, hopefully, because that's where we have our real power. So my feeling now is I think we need to approach everything happening and the experience that we call our lives here on Earth from a quantum level of thinking, from a quantum level of consciousness. Because if we just stay at the physical level of consciousness, I don't see how we have power over these guys. We're not trying to have power over them. That's not really the point. What we want to have power over is ourselves in our lives. We don't want to have power over them. That would be like yuck, right? So when I say power over, I mean a level of consciousness that is over and beyond where they are. And that would have to lie or have to exist in the quantum field of information. Because that is the realm of creation. That's the realm from which all creation manifests. So what I want to talk to you about today is first and foremost about the fact that we need to clear our consciousness completely of all the junk, all the propaganda, all the brainwashing, all of the mind control that has been put on us as a humanity around the subject of money, prosperity, abundance, all of it, that has been pummeled into our brains for many generations, for hundreds and thousands of years. So the reason I want to focus on clearing and transmutation of that is because the more of this junk we can transmute and clear from our consciousness, the better chance we have of waking up at a quantum level. And that's the level I think we need to wake up at. And I think we can wake up at that level. I truly believe that this is possible. Now, here's a way to start looking at this. We know that the current goal is to get us under total 100% absolute control using some new weird form of a financial system, right? Now, I'm not going to go into what it is. Maybe you guys have heard, but I'm not going to bring it up here. What has been done to our humanity all this time, I want you to think of it like this. It's like they've built a scaffolding in our minds to support and house this final agenda. Because see, if we were totally free and we lived in abundance and prosperity and the whole world was in abundance and everything was awesome the way it's supposed to be, right? If we were living like that, do you really think these controllers could just march in and say, okay, people, now we're going to shut all of that down. We're going to control you completely. You're going to have nothing but bugs and weeds and live in tiny spaces, and you're going to have nothing and you'll be happy, right? See, that would never work under those conditions. So instead, they had to very methodically, in order to acquire power over us, they had to very methodically use certain paradigms that would get instilled in our consciousness mentally and emotionally, which would therefore manifest physically, in order to, as I said a moment ago, build a type of scaffolding in our consciousness that is now, I believe, encoded in our DNA because it has been going on for so long. A kind of scaffolding that puts us in a position where we will be much easier to either accept it or maybe forced into it or something. In other words, they did this so that their nefarious plot, would actually maybe be possible. So what I want to help you with today is let's talk about taking that scaffolding apart and getting rid of it. And no longer identifying ourselves as cosmic human being creators, as entities who are here to house their negative scaffolding about money. So before we talk specifically about money, we need to talk about the principle of abundance. Because the universe supports abundance. And if we're not in alignment with that principle, if we instead have been forcibly manipulated into anchoring ourselves in a belief of scarcity, fear, guilt, and thinking that abundance and prosperity are just evil, associated with greed, associated with criminal behavior or bad people and, all that stuff, we are not in alignment with abundance. Our consciousness is not in alignment with abundance and prosperity. And that is 100% by design by these controllers. Now, the truth is that in the universe, which is I guess you could almost call it a forum of endless creation. Again, going back into the quantum field, which is the thing that lies behind all matter in space and time. Within that quantum field, that is the realm of infinite possibilities. Infinite possibilities, the place from which creation manifests, is a realm also of infinite abundance. That makes sense, right? Infinite creation, infinite possibility would mean infinite abundance in all forms. Not just money-wise, but all the ways in which abundance manifests. So you could say that abundance is actually a principle and it is actually a truth, if you look at it from that perspective. Now, there is infinite energy that keeps us alive, that supports us, and supports whatever it is that we choose to create wherever we are in this universe, whether we're on planet Earth or anywhere else. So that means an ongoing flow of abundant support, an unimpeded flow of creativity, of goodness, of prosperity and love, and all of the things that make life wonderful, because life is supposed to be wonderful. Now, we live in what is known as the third dimension. We live in a finite state of duality. The nature of existence here is that everything is separated from everything else. Things are objects, actions are objects, and every one of these objects, creations, or manifestations are given a label. We call that label language. We give everything that exists a label of sound and symbols. That would be the spoken word and the written word. So given that's the nature of our reality here, what's happened is we have something that we call trade. So if you think of everything that exists as having a label or a name, it also has a certain amount of value. It holds energy, the energy of however it was created. So then humans start trading these objects back and forth, and they say, well, this was worth this. And somebody else says, well, this thing's worth this, so let's just trade and call it even. You have this thing that I need, I have this thing that you need. Let's just trade. That's what they call bartering, right? And that is really the nature of the dimension that we are in right now. When you get into higher dimensions of reality, when you get into completely different realities, it doesn't work like that. But I'm not even going to go into that right now. I'm just going to stay focused on where we are right here, because this is what we need to solve. So given that we have this thing called trade, where people trade one thing for another, at some point, it just kept changing and changing and changing until eventually it got to this thing called money, right? Well, let's just assign a value to this thing. I don't know, gold or silver, maybe that's where it started. I'm not real familiar with the exact history at all. I don't think we need to know all the history to accomplish what we want to do here today. But basically what happened is another symbol was laid on top of everything, a symbol called money. So we'll put the symbol of a certain amount of money on this thing and on this thing and on this thing, and then we'll trade on those symbols, or we'll trade on those currencies, if you will. So essentially we are creators trading on the things that we create. And those things are generally known as either goods or services. Now let's fast forward into, I guess you could call it modern times or semi-modern times. At some point, these controllers figured out, you know what? Let's just put numbers on everything. Let's just assign everything on Earth that exists with a number that denotes its value. We call it dollars, right? But let's just call it numbers. Let's call it what it actually is. It's just numbers. And then they could say the cool thing is numbers can be changed. Numbers can be manipulated really, really easily. Oh, that's such a fantastic idea. I'm sure that's what they were saying to themselves, right? So once they started applying numbers to everything, it became very, very easy to tie literally every single thing on Earth into the controller's banking system. And this is the main way that they use to control the entire planet. See, if they can control how those numbers are applied and in what manner, then they can control the interactions between everything that exists here. Once you attach their numbers to things and activities, you can move those numbers around and make everything that's attached to those numbers follow along according to your wishes. So let's take a moment to look behind the curtain and see what's really there. Think about for a moment all of the things, the objects, the items that exist on Earth, and this includes items in nature because they've got numbers on everything. And also think about all of the activities or services that have numbers on them. What are all of these things and activities really made of? Well, they're made of energy, right? So in its simplest form, you have various manifestations of energy, and you have numbers attached to each of those manifestations, which are meant to denote the value of that energy manifestation. If you look behind all of this and the simplicity of it, you could instantly recognize that actually there is no money. There are only numbers and things and activities attached to those numbers. Let's take a look at this in the real world of everyday experience. Let's say, for example, you have a job. Someone has attached certain numbers to the value of that job. So if you do the job, you will be given that amount of numbers in your bank account. A bank account is where they keep your numbers. Now, suppose you go to a grocery store. You will notice that every single item in that grocery store has a number attached to it. Suppose you pick up, say, 5 items. Well, you have to make sure that the numbers on those items add up to at least the numbers you have in your bank account. And I'm not even going to get into credit cards because that's not really necessary to make the ultimate point that I want to make here. The point I want to make is that this whole thing is nothing more than shifting numbers placed on top of various forms of manifesting energy. So you have numbers and you have energy. But this is not what we're supposed to be thinking about. No, because if we understand what this really is, which is what I just described, those controllers are going to have a really hard time. And see, a really big problem for them, if this was all we saw, we would be really hard to control because we would just be creating all the time. We would be saying, hey, unlimited energy, unlimited numbers, quantum field, we're creators. Hey, this is awesome, right? And they'd just be kind of like left in the cold, unable to do anything. So, what do you think the controllers thought about way back even in ancient times? Well, they knew that we can't let these people think like that. That'll never work for our plan. So they had to figure out a way to get us to want nothing to do with any of this so they could be free to manipulate all of it and us however they wanted to. Now, you see, numbers shift and change, mediums of trade and currency, it's all moving around a little bit too much, right? So it's a little hard to nail it down as the enemy because, see, they needed to get us to see this beautiful field of abundance as really bad as like our enemy. So they came up, now this is not exact history, you guys, okay? So don't come at me with, well, Saratoga, that's not the actual history. I'm trying to give it to you conceptually in the simplest of ways because I'm ever mindful of the goal of what we're trying to accomplish here. So just to put it in simple terms, how do you consolidate all of those numbers, or in the past currencies, or the whole thing that was going on top of the energy to move it around? How do you consolidate all of that into one thing that you can get everybody focused on is really, really bad and something you should have nothing to do with? Well, you come up with a single word and a single concept and you call it money. So once the controllers labeled these numbers as money, they could take our focus off of the energy that these numbers were attached to. They could then get us to focus on money as an actual thing. And that was seriously important, because once they convinced us that money was a thing in and of itself, then they could so easily get us to think negatively about it. And that's very easy to do when money isn't really the thing that you actually want. What you actually want is the abundance of energy and flow that money represents. But they told us that money is the only gateway to that flow and that they control the gateway. What they wanted was to get us to fear and hate the gateway. Now, religions have played a huge role in making this happen. And that makes sense because in earlier times in history, religions were very tied in with governments. So religions told us that God hates this thing called money, and God hates anyone who has it. In fact, if you have it, you are evil by nature. And even if you openly say that you want it, then you are a bad person. So the religions and the controllers amassed tons and tons of wealth and told the rest of us that only evil people want what they have. See, religions teach that if you aren't happy living in abject poverty, then your motives are suspect. We hear statements like, God loves the poor. The poor shall always be with you. Like that's a good thing. We are told that poverty is akin to spirituality. Why is it a good thing for people to always be poor? Why? Why is that good? Are you evil for wanting a lovely, nice home to live in? Are you evil for wanting comfort and ease in your life, where you don't have to worry constantly about where the next few bucks are coming from? Are you evil if you don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, just barely making ends meet? Are you evil just because you want the freedom to travel, to eat nutritious, wonderful, healthy food? And are you evil to just want to create a life that you can love without stress and guilt? What these evil controllers have done for centuries and even millennia is to get us to associate wealth and abundance with evil, with fear, with greed, and with guilt. And we humans, we have been stupid enough to fall for that lie for centuries, for millennia, actually. It's so ironic, because it doesn't take a genius to figure out, wait a second, from the perspective of the controllers, the monarchs, the religions, and all of that. Hey, if we get these people to want no part of any of this, then we get it all to ourselves. Ooh, what a great plan. And what are the richest institutions on the planet and have always been the wealthiest institutions? Religions, right? Tons of wealth. And monarchs, tons of wealth. In other words, anyone who controls the people are generally the ones that have tons and tons of wealth. So ironic, isn't it? Because those are the very same people that are telling everybody that wealth is bad, it's evil, you're a terrible person if you want it. That's so we can keep it all to ourselves and you all have nothing, and that way we have all the power and you have none. See how that works? And then they get all the people to agree with them. Yes, you're right. We don't want that because that would make us bad. See, this human sheep problem, this has been around for a very long time. So let's take a look at their basic tenets for hatred of money. Number 1, money is evil. Well, that makes no sense. How can numbers be evil? Number 2, people who have lots of money are also evil. So they're saying that people who have a lot of those numbers are evil. Number 3, if you want money, it means that you are also greedy and selfish. The definition of greed means to have an excessive desire for things like money or for the things that money can buy. Who decides what excessive is? It's all relative. To a starving person in a third world country, they could say that we are greedy because we have an excessive desire for running water. We have an excessive desire to get food in grocery stores. We have an excessive desire for ordering pizza. Heck, they might even say that we're greedy because we have an excessive desire to actually have a roof over our heads. So because we have so little compared to the wealthy controllers, they can brainwash us to believe that it's excessive to want anything beyond the average person's daily financial struggle to pay the bills. And the definition of selfish is to be excessively concerned with yourself more so than with other people. When you keep everyone in fear and survival and struggle over money and barely making ends meet, then there's not a lot of energy left over to be overly focused on other people. Number 4, and finally, we have the belief that people who want money are disliked by God. In other words, we are only worthy of God's love if we are poor and downtrodden. Well, this is stupid. Being poor and downtrodden means suffering. So if you believe this, then you have to also believe that God enjoys seeing people suffer. Why would God think that it's a good idea to withhold abundance in an infinite universe? And by the way, who are all of these people who claim to be speaking for God? Well, a lot of them actually are the controllers, you guys. That's who's claiming that God loves all of this suffering and poverty and misery. It's the controllers who are saying that. Why do we believe that these people actually speak for the Creator? We have our own connection to the Creator. We don't need a bunch of lizards and bad people telling us what the Creator has to say. I mean, that's just crazy. Now, of course, there are people who really are greedy and selfish and evil and manipulative who do have lots of these numbers called money. But there are also plenty of greedy, selfish, evil people who don't have lots of money. Oh yes, and there's number 5. If you have money, then you are depriving someone else. Well, misery loves company. And the more miserable, financially deprived people there are, the better off everyone is, because then there's lots of company for everyone's misery. So we have this mountain of negative junk poured on top of us, poured into our consciousness, and even anchored in our DNA because it's been going on for so many thousands of years. And now the controllers want to take all of that negativity and use it against us once and for all. They want us to hate money so much that we will come to believe that it's noble to have almost none of it. See, their plan is to tell us that it's good for the planet if we have no money at all. It's good for the planet if we own nothing. You see how that works? That's going to be the excuse. It's going to all be blamed on the weather issue. See, they're going to say, oh, you know what? The weather on planet Earth will improve if you people have no money, you own nothing, and you eat bugs and weeds. Then we will have nice weather on planet Earth. That's what they're going to try to get us to believe, you guys. That's their thing. It's insane. See, they want us to divorce ourselves from any responsibility at all in this matter of money so that they can use their spiritually required absence of money to crush us completely by using these negative tactics to make us willingly push ourselves out of the realm of openly desiring and acquiring money. They get to control it all. And thus, they also control us. We have been completely bamboozled by these evil controllers because what they have actually accomplished is to create a major divide between us and God and between us and the universe that would naturally supply us with abundance in every form if our consciousness were properly aligned with that principle. They have made it very difficult and in some cases impossible for us to align our consciousness with the natural flow of abundance in this universe. All of this negativity around money causes us to seize up with fear and feel unable to surrender to the goodness that the creator of all that is really wants for us. See, it's not really even money that we desire. What we desire is a restoration to feeling connected to an ease of flow in our lives. And if money is the current way to receive that flow of energy, then it's time that we stop hating it so much. It's time that we stop fearing it so much. Dealing with this right now is seriously important because the controllers are currently planning for a universal, am I allowed to say this? Basic, I'll put words in between it. Income. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. That's what they're planning for. And that plan is designed to shut us all down once and for all. They are working right now to turn the screws on our pre-existing hatred of money and bring us to a point where we actually believe that their plan to permanently enslave us is a good thing. We need to transmute their conditioning so that we can fully align our consciousness with a power that is greater than they are. So here's what I suggest you do if you want to. Try this little experiment. See if you can find out where the boundaries are in your consciousness when it comes to money. How much money would it take for you to remove all of the financial stress in your life? What flow of income on a monthly basis would you need to finally be able to truly relax and create what you want in life? And if that happened, how would you be living differently than you are living right now? And then allow yourself to get into the feeling of that. And what would you be doing differently? Now, as you get into this, notice the different thoughts and emotions that come up. Notice all of the nooks and crannies in your mind where negativity in any form about this still exists. It could come in the form of, well, that's not possible for me, or I don't deserve that, or people won't like me anymore, or that's just not necessary. It's not fair. I can just continue on the way that I always have. And then notice the emotions that come up. Maybe you feel a sense of guilt at wanting to live a better life. Maybe you feel like you don't deserve it or that you're not worthy. Maybe you feel like it wouldn't be fair for you to have a good life if others don't. Maybe the idea of prosperity and abundance literally scares you. So once you try this little exercise, you will be left with a choice. You can either dismiss it and go on as you always have, or you can pause and ask yourself if you truly want to clear the fear and negativity so you can have a chance to find some relief. So you have a chance to open up to a change in your circumstances. Now, the controllers are pummeling us more and more with fear about the economy, the banks, war, and a financial collapse. They are softening us up for the kill. They want us to expect their dire predictions instead of creating something else. I am telling you guys, the biggest problem that we have with these controllers is their ability to control our minds. What they're trying to do right now is to create a negative momentum in our consciousness so that when they take us over the cliff, we will hardly even notice that they did it because we will have been expecting their dire predictions all along. See, we can actually say no to this. We can actually refuse one more second of their disgusting negativity. Instead, we can seek to align ourselves with the universal principles of abundance and enough wealth and prosperity for all. Why not try out the universe for a change? Why not look to a much better possibility for ourselves? It does exist. I mean, miracles do happen. But we have to get behind that vision on a deeply personal level. Just remember that everything is energy. Everything you have ever desired is energy in its finest form. There is no shortage of energy in this universe. You are not a bad person because you desire to create a better, easier life for yourself. It's entirely natural to feel that way. And it's what we're all evolving into anyway. Now, the frontier for this war for our souls is in our minds. It's time that we take ownership of that space within. It's time to kick those controllers out of that space once and for all. They have no business being there. It is entirely within our authority as legitimate human beings in this universe to say no more to their nefarious actions. So why not relieve yourself of all guilt, fear, and shame around the subject of money and abundance? Instead, allow yourself the joy of envisioning a life that is abundant in all aspects. You deserve the relief. Then ask the universe or God or however you refer to the source of all that is. Ask for that help to get you there. So let me just finish with one final thought. You can think of all that negative programming that the controllers have instilled in us about abundance and prosperity and money. All the stuff I talked about being like the scaffolding. All of that programming it's almost like a dam that dams up a river of abundance. Because abundance in this universe flows like a river. So you can imagine that abundance like a river is meant to flow through you and out into your life. So the controllers instill a bunch of negativity, fear, guilt, shame, all of that, which acts as a big no in front of that flow of abundance. And we end up with, instead of a river of abundance, we end up with a trickle, just barely enough, right? So the whole idea in deprogramming ourselves is to get rid of that junk that acts like a dam that dams up that river and holds it back, so that then we can realign our consciousness and our energy with the natural flow of abundance. That is what this universe is really about. This universe is about endless creation, endless abundance, endless flow of energy, and how that energy can manifest with no limitations, infinite possibilities. And that's what we're trying to evolve into. So I think this might be a good step for us to take right about now. So if you can see it in this way, you can also realize that you're actually taking an evolutionary step by removing the negativity that's in the way of that flow. So I invite you to just, contemplate all of the things I've said here. If you resonate with it, if it makes sense to you, if you feel like maybe you want to embrace your natural desire for goodness, ease, and beauty, and comfort, and love, and abundance, and prosperity, if you feel like maybe you'd like to actually embrace that for a change within yourself, well, maybe you want to try out my little idea of an experiment of transmuting that junk that's in the way of that. And then we have a chance to circumvent more being piled on us, more being suppressed, more suppressing us. And maybe we have a chance to have a very different outcome. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would like a new, refreshing mindset when it comes to prosperity and abundance. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I am here on Tuesdays with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.